Hello and welcome back to a brand new weekend recap. We got a lot of amazing basketball and one big NFL news trade that came out. Deebo Samuel going to the Commanders. But on this recap show, we're going to talk about anything that stood out to us. But the two main things is the Cavaliers statement win over the Celtics, and the Celtics bounced back against the Cavs by beating the Nuggets just now. And I think now we have to measure the Nuggets panic meter. It feels like they aren't able to beat these top teams, these top contenders. The defense looks a little bit suspect. So does their shooting. That's what we're going to get into today, fellas. How are we doing?
Dells, talk to me. And a nice bounce back win after, you could argue, the biggest choke of the season, maybe.
Yeah, it was a great game today against Denver. That was a game that it looked like early was going to be a blowout. And then, as Boston has done these last two games, let Denver get back into it and then made some big shots down the stretch. So I'm doing good, man. It's been a great weekend of basketball. Joel, I will say you were missed on Friday night out. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate. Could have been there, could have laughed in my face. That's what Drew was doing. You could have been there doing it too, but can't have it all.
Shout out to my queen. Happy belated to my girlfriend, of course. 27 years young. We were celebrating her birthday on that Friday night, so we were out at the bar. I saw the Celtics collapse. I'm here throwing the Reggie Miller choke hands at Dell's. I show him the clip of Jason Tatum telling the Cavaliers to get out of here after they're up 25-3 in the first quarter when everything was sweet. And then obviously we watched the beautiful comeback by the Cleveland Cavaliers. All of America was cheering, throwing just nothing but excitement into the air. Watching the Celtics after collapse, it was amazing. It was awesome. Jason Tatum masterclass, Jaylen Brown masterclass, and you lose somehow. That usually doesn't happen. But today we watched Jason Tatum look completely opposite of how he looked on that Friday night, and the Celtics were still able to win this game versus Denver. Amazing in the first half, not the best showing from the Celtics in the second half, but still were able to weather the storm and get this W. So it was a nice bounce back win, no doubt.
I saw a banger tweet after the game that whenever Jason Tatum tries to have one of those moments, that the universe just doesn't let him have one of those moments. And I thought it was pretty true. He did have the best game of his season, but I think we just saw Drew just now this Sunday why he's not in that tier. He follows up his best game by shooting poorly. And then down the stretch, who was handling the ball, who was taking control?
We know.
It wasn't him. So no. I feel like, but Dales, I will tell you this. I'm fair. So if Tatum plays like how he played on Friday in a playoff run where he's just dominant to that level, there's nothing else you can say. But what he did this past playoffs, having 8 red hot zones, being inefficient from everywhere on the field. I mean, he's not quite there yet, buddy.
That was two years ago. No, that 8 red hot zones wasn't that?
No, it was this past playoff run.
Oh, I thought it was 23-24.
Yeah. No, it was this past playoff run, but the Cavaliers beat the Celtics.
He just has so many deep playoff runs. I'd be forgetting. My bad.
Yeah. I understand you. So the Cavaliers beat the Celtics, and I feel like the Celtics are kind of playing with house money because, at first they were blowing them out and you thought that it was going to be an easy victory. They were going to cruise to a win. The Cavaliers coming back showed a lot of resiliency, but, I feel like the excuses are already starting for Boston, and I don't even think it's an excuse. It's just what happened, right? Porzingis and Jrue Holiday didn't play, and the Cavaliers played at full strength and still were down by that much. Even though the Celtics weren't at full strength, I thought that the Cavs desperately needed to win that game. And the fact that Donovan Mitchell took over in the way that he took over down the stretch, and Evan Mobley, he was a big reason why they came back as well. His defense and his rim presence and his rebounding, they needed this win. I think this is going to give them a major confidence boost going into the playoffs. And they can probably hang their hat on the fact that Tatum probably won't be this hot from the field. Like, he was hitting everything, and so was Jaylen Brown. But I think an obvious weakness for the Cavaliers is that they're going to pick on Darius Garland. He was getting picked on, and we saw the Celtics pick on Jamal Murray against the Nuggets just now. Against smaller guards, they're just going to have their way, and that's what we saw when they were picking on Darius Garland.
Yeah, that game was down the stretch. It was apparent that the Celtics needed KP and they needed Jrue Holiday bad, right? Because basically every action they were getting into was involving Sam Hauser. And when they were able to get past Sam Hauser's, they were doing pretty frequently. Garland had a couple really nice highlights on him where he had Hauser jumping all over the damn arena, but there was no rim protection there too, right? They started this game with Al Horford. Cornette was getting some minutes. He was terrible. Pritchard was really bad in this game. I mean, we had our two main bench guys, Cornette and Pritchard. They were combined like a -70 in like 35 minutes. They were getting destroyed out there. But we really missed KP's rim protection as well, right? Like when they were getting past our defenders, shout out to Al Horford. He's not much of a rim protector, right? I think out on the perimeter, he's pretty good against guys that aren't really quick, right? Like, though he did a good job against Luka in the finals, just these kind of bigger guys that use their strength, he does a good job at. But quicker guards like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, that's where he could get picked apart. And then when it comes to rim protection, he's just not that great. But yeah, the Celtics, I mean, they're going to need to be at full strength to go back to back this season, right? I don't think, barring injuries to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're going to have a run that was as favorable to them as last season, where basically every single team they played, whether it's Jimmy Butler with the Heat, the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton, of course, the Cavaliers had a couple of injuries they were dealing with. Their teams are just going to be more healthy, more likely than not. And you need Drew Holiday out there. You need KP out there. I am a bit worried about Drew Holiday, though, because this finger issue he's dealing with, he's not going to have surgery on. And it's something that is basically going to linger for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the next couple of weeks. But before this injury, he missed a few games before the All-Star break. He came back for like 2 or 3 games right before the Cleveland game. He was like 6 for 21. His offensive game was completely gone. His touch was completely gone. And I remember we were talking last week, John brought up the numbers of Drew Holiday falling off as an offensive player as is, right? He was the best 3-point shooter in the corner last year, and this year he's been below average. So he already really wasn't in a rhythm, and now this finger injury is going to keep him out for a couple of weeks. Who knows the offensive player he'll be in the playoffs, and that's an area where you could pick on the Celtics. If you're going to sag off anybody in this playoff run, it's probably going to be Drew Holiday if he's not hitting his shots, so it makes it a bit easier to guard them on offense, even with all the firepower they had. But I mean, Cleveland showed why the number 1 seed, right? Cleveland showed why they have been the best team in the Eastern Conference and arguably the NBA this season. The resiliency to be down 25-3 in that crowd, in that environment where everybody's hitting shots. I think Boston started 9 for 11 from the three-point land. So they were not able to get anything going on defense, even when they were contesting and they were closing out. Boston was just on one of those heaters that they go on. But it wasn't just coming back from the 25-3 lead. Boston was up 17 in that third quarter as well. Like, Cleveland made it close. Boston blew the lead back up again. Then they brought it close once more. So I thought it was a really good showing from Cleveland because, yeah, Donovan Mitchell said after the game, too, it's like, they don't have KP. They don't have Drew Holiday. Who really cares? But you can't go into Boston, get blown out by 20 or 30 points without those 2 starters out there, because then the conversation really gets nasty. Now we go into the playoffs, the series tied 2 apiece. Hopefully both teams are healthy, because when they've played this year, even with the injuries they've battled, it feels like all 4 games have gone down to the wire, and it's really come down to late game execution. And it doesn't get better than that for an ECF matchup.
What excited me the most watching this game was on the Cleveland Cavaliers side was the question that I had, where shame on me for even having it, I guess, but we've seen this entire season, Donovan Mitchell allow and let Garland and Mobley have their moments to run the offense and allow their games to elevate. And obviously, we understand how essential their growth has been to this season's success for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, we've seen Donovan take a little bit of a backseat for a majority of the season, but recently we started to see him ramp it back up. In a game like this, where, Joel, you and I asked, I want to see the best version of the Cleveland Cavaliers in this game. Can you do that for us? Can you go out there and prove that we can hang with the Boston Celtics? Now, like you guys are mentioning, albeit without Drew, without KP, but how is Donovan Mitchell going to look in these situations? Is it going to continue to be a passive, let Garland get his, let Mobley try and get his? In this game, when Donovan Mitchell needed to assert himself, he showed that he can still do it at the highest of levels. When Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going tit for tat on the opposite side and they simply cannot miss, Donovan Mitchell answered the call in that fourth quarter, going and outscoring both JB and Jason Tatum. He was the best player in that fourth quarter, and that ended up being the separator. But the fact that their offense showed in a game where it's 25-3 early on, we rarely have seen the Celtics in any type of disarray at all this season, back against the wall? Can you go out there and can you rally back? Can you show that you are an elite team, that you can come back from these crazy deficits? And with Donovan Mitchell needing to be the guy, he showed that this isn't just a type of situation where I'm kind of the backseat and now it's Garland and it's the Mobley show. No, Donovan Mitchell is still one of the best in the game and showed that in any given situation, he can elevate and take over a basketball game, even against one of the league's best in the Boston Celtics. An amazing game, but interesting that even when you have JB and JT at their best, they're still beatable. I know you don't have Drew. I know you don't have KP, but what a huge boost of confidence this is for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Even if you came to this game and it was a close game and that the Cavaliers were able to squeak away with the W, to me, obviously, this means so much more because you showed what you were made of. You showed that you're a resilient group. And although you were the healthier team, you still were able to rally back from an insane, terrible start.
And they've been rallying. A couple nights before, they were losing to the Nets. They were down big, and they came back against them and beat them and ended up outscoring them in the fourth quarter. I feel like there's a growing disbelief in the Cavaliers because they haven't been to the Eastern Conference Finals, so they're inherently the underdog, but they have what it takes to beat Boston. And I think even with KP and Drew not being out there, I still think that even if they are out there, the Cavaliers can beat them, and that's going to be a hell of a series. And Donovan Mitchell, he's a microwave. I mean, in the playoffs, we've seen moments before, especially in Utah, where he's averaging 35 points per game, and he looks like the best offensive player, one of the best offensive player and shot makers on the planet. So I think that that's going to be a good matchup. But the Celtics bounced back against Denver, and I feel like we have less question marks about the Celtics. Maybe we would have if they lost, because it would have been 3 straight losses by them this year, losing to the Pistons, the Cavaliers, and then it would have been Denver. But now I feel like we have more question marks about Denver because they lost to the Lakers a couple nights ago. They now lose to the Celtics, and it's clear that Nikola Jokic, we understand, is an MVP caliber player, probably the best player on the planet still, but the supporting cast around him, the defensive limitations that he offers also on a defensive end, coupled with the struggles offensively, I feel like every team's game plan going into a playoff series is we're going to let Russell Westbrook and Christian Brown shoot, Aaron Gordon as well, and if they make their shots, so be it, but we're not going to allow Jokic to take over the game, and that game plan has worked thus far, and in the fourth quarter, their offense just looked discombobulated. This Denver team just does not feel like that same Denver team that won the title a couple seasons back. They feel like a team that has multiple weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and it feels like those weaknesses and vulnerabilities are going to be even worse in a playoff setting. Going into this playoffs, it feels like there's never been an easier time to guard Nikola Jokic. Not because Nikola Jokic is worse or he's not playing MVP level, but the pieces around him have fallen off pretty considerably, right? We talked about ad nauseum losing KCP. And on one hand, it's like, yeah, well, Christian Brown gets this awesome opportunity now. And he has taken that and ran with it. He was arguably their second best player, third best player at a minimum in this game. Jamal Murray came alive in that second half. In the first half, it was for Christian Brown, this could have been a 25-point deficit. He was playing really, really well. But when you lose KCP, it's not just Christian Brown gets to step up and he gets to flourish, but you're losing a good basketball player, right? You're losing depth there where Christian Brown becomes maybe sixth man. Sometimes, depending on the matchup, can be slid into the starting lineup too. Now he's someone who is in the starting lineup, and now you need Julian Strawther, or you see them giving Zeke Najiman, who's obviously a big, but you have to go deeper into this Nuggets bench that wasn't a strong suit to start off with, right? And we saw it even a bit today, and we saw it some in the Lakers game too. When Russell Westbrook hits an early shot, or if he gets hot early in the game, he's going to keep shooting. And teams are going to allow him to shoot that corner three, those long mid-range shots. And sometimes he'll hit them and you'll get burned by it. But I feel like more often than not, teams are going to live with that. And they're probably going to succeed with Russell Westbrook taking those shots, being a below 35% three-point shooter, and overall just being inefficient outside of the restricted area. So even though Nikola Jokic still might be the most unguardable player one-on-one, what we've seen over these last few weeks, over this last couple of weeks, is teams aren't going to allow that to happen, right? This isn't new for Jokic. He has seen double teams for years at this point. He's seen triple teams for years at this point. But in previous years, he's had Jamal Murray playing at all NBA level consistently. He's had KCP out there hitting shots. He's had other guys that this team doesn't have to make teams pay for helping off defenders. If Russell Westbrook is out on the court, whoever is guarding Russ is just going to be helping either roaming in the paint or hard doubling on Nikola Jokic. I mean, there were moments in this game where the Celtics had Jaylen Brown guarding Jokic, and whoever was on, Jamal Murray, or not Jamal Murray, excuse me, Russell Westbrook, or whichever other, Zeke Naji for a few minutes, DeAndre Jordan, they're just going to help off of that. And it's going to be really difficult for Jokic and this Denver offense to really get going. And this game with Jokic on the court, they only had 110 offensive rating, right? This is a team with Jokic on the court is the best offense in basketball. That's how good and dominant he's been this season. So I do feel like their flaws are gonna show in the playoffs. We're already seeing it now. But even though I told you guys like a couple months ago or a month ago, they felt like a sleeping giant. I don't know, man. I feel like every game that goes by, every big matchup that goes by too, they only have one win against the top 3 teams in the NBA. A couple of those games Jokic did miss, to be fair, but they don't stack up right now. And their last game against the Lakers didn't look like they stacked up either. So right now they would be on the outside looking in terms of, are they a contender? Because they don't look like it right now.
When you look at Denver, it's obvious what you should do when you play them. Allow everybody else to beat you. Don't allow Nikola Jokic to take over games like he can. And when he does, 9 out of 10 times, we see that result in a Nuggets W. Now we're starting to see teams really hone in on Jokic, and now we're starting to see the surrounding pieces around them not play to the level that takes to play winning basketball against the cream of the crop teams. Now, Jamal Murray, over these last few games, we've really seen him in form. He's been playing some great, strong basketball, especially scoring the basketball. In the first half, he was a no-show. And one of the big reasons why the Boston Celtics were able to really take control of this game. In the second half, he picked it up, and to nobody's surprise, the Denver Nuggets started to compete and really make this a great game. Now, as for Nikola Jokic and the criticisms on him and not being assertive in this game, it's in my opinion, if you're making the smart basketball play, you can do both where you're asserting yourself, but you're also getting and making the good pass for the open look. Not always on him where your teammates aren't converting. They're not handling passes like we saw in this game. And of course, the conversation on Russell Westbrook. He's been so much of a positive this season that, of course, when he does have a bad moment, like we saw against the Lakers, like we saw in this game, that, of course, we're going to talk loudly on it. But again, he's been so good this year that I'm not going to use this game to really shit on him and for what he has been for a majority of the season, which has really been a positive asset for the Denver Nuggets. But when you look at the defensive scheme for this Denver Nuggets team, you have moments where, of course, you're going to go and you're going to pick the mismatch on Nikola Jokic. You have games like today where we're going to take the mismatch on Jamal Murray, and they were legitimately running every single time he was on the court, whoever offense on Jamal Murray. Jaylen Brown absolutely killed that matchup for a majority. He was bullying him, getting down low, getting to his spot, making that turn away, that fall away jumper. And that was just easy points every single time for the Boston Celtics. It's tough when this team has so many defensive liabilities, especially the 2 best offensive players being not the best defenders, especially Jokic for how lazy he looks on the defensive side of the ball. And if you're not having this amazing offensive output like we're accustomed to seeing from the Denver Nuggets, you have moments like the Lakers game, you have moments like the Milwaukee Bucks game, and then you have moments like the first half of this game versus the Boston Celtics where you do and you come out flat. I understand that the Denver Nuggets still have a great team, a great starting 5, I should say, when they are 100% healthy. But the legitimate defensive concerns that I do have about the Denver Nuggets, the concerns that I do have about this depth, it makes me legitimately wonder how they do look in a 7-game series. This isn't the same usual team that we are accustomed to with the Denver Nuggets. If you're getting a consistent Jamal Murray, then I'm happy to eat my words and be wrong about them, because we know when Jamal's on, the Denver Nuggets usually are playing unstoppable basketball. But that's the issue. It's been too inconsistent for me to really go all in on them. But for the Boston Celtics, I'm going to be honest with you, Dels. You're happy to walk away with this W. I don't like how the last 2 games in that second half, both games, you're starting to lose the steam. And I get it. No Drew, no KP. That's what puts you over the top. And we understand that. But last year, we saw KP not be available in the finals. And this is a weird injury with Drew Holiday. Your 4 players, you got to respect, of course, Al Horford, what he's been able to do. But your 3 players are great. But what makes you so overwhelming is how great your starting 5 is when at full strength. And these last 2 games, we haven't seen you guys close the best.
I thought the non-Jokic minutes in the second half were fine. I thought Jamal Murray did a good job uplifting those lineups, especially to start the
sure.
fourth quarter.
No doubt.
You saw Denver go on a run with Jokic off the court. So I don't think those lineups have been completely terrible this year. I just think over the course of the fourth quarter, the possessions just stopped running through Jokic for whatever reason. There just wasn't a point of emphasis to run those possessions through him for whatever reason, and that's why their offense sputtered. And you also had, like, let's just be honest, like Jokic had some bad turnovers. The pass to the corner to MPJ that led to a transition bucket, so those moments, I just feel like Denver's offense hasn't been completely in sync this year. And Russell Westbrook has been fine this year, but we know what his history is in the playoffs, and he kind of is one of those players that you view as an unplayable player in the playoffs just because of the spacing issues. Now, that might change because of just how many times he's been cutting this year. He's really upped that percentage from other teams that he's been in other situations. So this is a completely different situation, but nonetheless, I just think Denver, I'm starting to restore my faith in Jamal Murray and believe in him. I just really don't believe in everybody else. Like, I don't believe in the Christian Brown jump shots, the Russell Westbrook jump shots, the Peyton Watson when he comes back jump shots, the Aaron Gordon jump shots. And I think there's just so many things that defenses are okay with letting happen for the Nuggets offense to be at its best.
Can I say, I look at this depth that they do have, and it's so weird, the combination of players where Russell Westbrook's offense can be inconsistent, especially scoring the basketball, but you need him on the court because of what he brings on the defensive side of the ball. For a guy like Julian Strawther, he's a great three-point shooter, but on the defensive side of the ball, he's an absolute liability. Christian Brown, I really can't say anything negative about him this season. It's just a matter of, are we going to see this level of consistency in the playoffs like we've seen all year? So for me right now, he's the role player that I'm questioning the absolute least for them.
He was like the best player on the court today.
Exactly.
Great.
So that's why I say
for
that.
The Nuggets.
So, I'm with you outside of Jokic, of course, understanding what he does as a playmaker, but defense, it's fair if you want to question that. But then again, Peyton Watson, how are we going to look on the offensive side? Are you going to be a guy that we can't play come down the stretch because we can only have one or the other, Peyton Watson or Russell Westbrook? That's where you can have conversations about the inconsistencies in their lineup. And then you're just going to have to run Jokic, Jamal, Aaron Gordon, MPJ in the playoff setting 38, 40 minutes, 42 minutes a game, if that's really what you're going to commit to, because again, this depth is so questionable.
So yeah, no, I think the one other thing I will say, missing Aaron Gordon today was obviously huge, right? Like having Aaron Gordon on the court was big. I'm not too worried about Boston yet, just to hit Drew's point, because I feel like this hasn't been a big issue all season long. It feels like really just the last two games. And I mean, against Cleveland, I think that number one, Donovan Mitchell was just on a fucking heater. And sometimes you just, when a dude that good is on a heater, you're just going to get beat sometimes. Today, though, I thought down the stretch, the Celtics offense was really letting them down, right? The Jays were both pretty poor in the fourth quarter. I think Tatum had 2 points. Jaylen Brown had 1 point. They were combined like 1 for 7, 1 for 8. It was Derek White and Al Horford down the stretch hitting the big shots. And if that's the case, the game's probably going to look ugly. But yeah, overall in that second half, Boston did not play with the same intensity in the first half. We saw that at times last year too, but it was against like the Hawks, and it was just like, all right, this is probably fake, like Trae Young, or is DeJounte scoring like 40 on 40 shots? You're like, okay, it's probably nonsense. But against the top tier teams, or at least Cleveland and whatever we think of the Nuggets now, it's fair to be a bit more concerned.
Now, there are some other NBA things that happen. Number one, the Grizzlies have lost 2 straight games off back-to-back game winners.
What does that mean? Wait, what does that mean for my Lakers?
That means the Lakers could get the second seed today if they beat the Clippers, which is highly possible. And I think Jalen Brunson has solidified himself as a clutch player of the year on shots with under 3 minutes left, or no, the final 2 minutes of a game. He's 25 for 39, and he's shooting 64% from the field. He leads the NBA in clutch points per game. He's second in clutch points, only behind Trae Young. And he has 21 assists to 7 turnovers in the clutch. I think he solidified himself as a clutch player of the year. And that performance against the Grizzlies down the stretch, the 3 to go up, and then the pass to OG Anunoby to win the game off the game winner. I mean, I feel like he solidified himself, and Mitchell Robinson played amazing. Those minutes were great. I'm just saying, Dels, don't count us out just yet, because next time we play the Celtics, we're going to be healthy with Big Mitch.
You're only a couple games back. What, three games back? 2.5?
Yeah, I mean, we're creeping. I mean, I think
we have the tiebreaker, though.
With Mitchell Robinson coming back, I think that just changes everything. The defense looks better. The rebounding looks better. I'm just saying.
It might be too little too late, brother.
Listen,
and
Knicks
you know who
fans
just
beg
got bought
for him.
out? You know who just got bought out? Oh yeah,
Who?
that demon, PJ
Bol-
Tucker. If the
PJ Tucker.
Knicks bring in PJ
Don't say Bol
Tucker
Bol.
for that wing defense,
Please,
oh
Joel,
come
stop.
on, let's be
stop
real.
Let's stop at praising the fact that Mitchell Robinson's back. Let's be happy about that. Mitch is back in the lineup. We got the size back in New York. Cat doesn't have to be the lockdown five. Now you can rely on Mitch to do the dirty work. Please, Lord, be with Mitchell Robinson in that lower half. Pause.
And you know who's
resume.
balling for the Westchester Knicks? TJ Warren. He's in the shadows.
I mean,
waiting,
TJ
else.
Warren's gonna be a microwave when he's 50. Also, shout out to Mikal Bridges, who had a big defensive in the backcourt when John Morant was trying to bring the ball up the court. He had a big possession there too to get you guys the ball back.
I thought that Ja was gonna hit that layup. It was another one of those games where if Ja hit a couple more shots, he was gonna have 30. But he was once again he didn't hit a 3. I think in the Knicks and the Suns game combined, he went like 1 for like 17 from 3. He's been on a cold streak.
Now that game against who did we watch them? Where he
The Suns.
Rockets? No, Suns. Yeah, no, that was bad. Who was it? 0 for 10 before he hit that last 3? 0 for 9.
Yeah,
Yes.
facts.
I think he was 0 for 9. Yes, he was 0 for 9. So no, he was awful against the Knicks shooting wise. Down the stretch, Mikal Bridges has actually made a lot of defensive plays down the stretch in the clutch this year. Just contested ball handlers. Definitely underrated. I mean, you saw his defensive impact is more felt with Mitchell Robinson because we actually have a big that can contain pick and rolls now. So Mikal Bridges doesn't have to make up for everything. So I think it's going to bring a big boost to him. And I'm telling you, in the next Boston matchup, if the series is 3-1 headed into the playoffs, I'm just saying there's more confidence going into it.
Kind of like the Cavs. Hey, you just get one. You feel great about it. Now with the Knicks, you've gotten belt to ass every single time that we've played. But I just get my one. That's all I need.
That was just muted.
I said I love March and April hoops. It's the best part of the year. Best part of the year.
Now, the last thing we're going to mention.
I had a future franchise player in Austin Reeves because of April runs. Can't forget that.
The Commanders traded for Deebo Samuel, and what he went for was a 5th-round pick. Adam Peters, having that connection with Deebo back in San Francisco, made that move to bring him back. He's familiar with him. And Deebo Samuel, I think, is number one, a perfect fit for the Commanders offense. I think everybody's kind of overreacting to how washed he is. I think that a lot of his struggles were due to him not being able to beat man coverage, but the Commanders don't face a lot of man because they have a scrambling quarterback. When you play man, you turn your back to the quarterback. It's a lot of zone. Deebo is still one of the best receivers against zone, and he's one of the best receivers at catching screens, and the Commanders run a lot of screens. Now those screens aren't going to Noah Brown and Diami Brown. They're going to Deebo Samuel, who can make something happen in space. So I think from a scheme perspective, it's the perfect fit. A 5th-round pick with the fact that he is making $22 million. Not the best, but it's only a 1-year deal, so it's kind of like a prove-it year for Deebo. For San Fran, this makes no sense because you only get a 5th-round pick, but they're taking over $30 million in dead money by trading Deebo. And now we saw reports that they want to trade Brandon Ayuk as well. They're open to trading him. They are seeing right now, we're seeing firsthand, when you want to pay a quarterback, these are the type of cost-cutting moves that you have to make. And Deebo, his down year, 680 yards. He had like over 400 yards of yak. He didn't have the best season. He's far from his all-pro Pro Bowl self. But I feel like a lot of times it was Brock Purdy also letting him down and not giving him great balls. I really did. And now Brock Purdy next year is going to be in a situation where you have one weapon subtracted from that group. And whatever people want to say about Deebo, I don't think he's completely washed anymore. I don't. And with the Commanders now having him, they run a lot of pony personnel, which is 2 running back sets. He can be one of those running backs in the backfield. They can use him in different ways. I just think it gives him another chess piece and somebody that adds a different skill set to the offense. And I actually like this move over a move that I projected them to make, which was getting Cooper Kupp. I think them adding Deebo is much better than them adding Cooper Kupp just because of how he fits their scheme.
Yeah, this is a great move. I thought my mic was muted again. This is a great move. Adam Peters is showing to be one of the better GMs in football as well, right? This is somebody who came over from San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, his first draft hit it out of the park. Jaden Daniels looks like a franchise quarterback. Looks like he hit out of the park with Dan Quinn. And then Cliff Kingsbury, too, who, is probably in collaboration with Dan Quinn, who he wants for his coaching staff. But Deebo Samuel for a 5th-round pick, there's almost no downside to it. It's all reward, right? Because a 5th-round pick, someone who's day 3, I really don't know why the NFL has high value on day 2 or day 3 picks. I get it for teams that are rebuilding, right? Where you just want to acquire a lot of young, cheap talent. That makes sense. But anyone that's a contender, I'm willing to give up basically any draft pick for if I know you can contribute, right? Deebo Samuel, it's a bit different because you mentioned he's making $22 million a year. For if someone was on the open market coming off this past season, isn't getting 22 million. He does have an injury history, and he really doesn't have multiple years of elite production. It's really that 1 year that stands out where Deebo looked like a solidified top 10 receiver in football. But still, he comes to your team and is immediately, without question, the second best weapon you have on offense, right? The fact that the Commanders were able to put together a top 10 offense, or at times top 5 offense throughout all of last season, including some of the biggest games of the year in the playoffs against Detroit, against Tampa Bay, and then, of course, against the Eagles, where you got blown out, but it wasn't because you weren't able to move the ball. It's because you had some really costly turnovers. So getting Deebo Samuel on this team is huge. The cause for it is huge, or excuse me, the cause for it's a great value. You got to think, before the season started, you moved off Jahan Dotson for a 3rd-round pick, right? You traded him to Philly. I think you did give up a 4th or 5th to attach to him, but you still had that extra pick, which you traded for Lattimore. So Adam Peters is showing I could hit on these draft picks. I could hit on guys that are franchise setters. But once we have a team that is good enough, I will make a move at the deadline. I will make a move, in the trade market in the offseason, and we'll see what he does in free agency. But he's not just going to stand pat and see how guys progress. No, this is a team with a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback contract. It's time to get aggressive. Go and get valued or maybe undervalued veterans who could help you as soon as next season.
And I understand that we talk about that all-pro year with Deebo Samuel, where he went for over 1,400. He was incredible. But we can't forget the year that they went to the Super Bowl, albeit that he did miss a little bit of time in that season. He was pretty great for the San Francisco 49ers. Whenever he was on that field, he was an impact player, whether it was catching passes, whether it was coming out of the backfield. We understand how dynamic he is. And you add another element to this Washington Commanders offense for a 5th-round pick. To me, it was an absolute no-brainer. Now you pair him alongside Terry McLaurin. You have 2 wide receivers that you can really, really make some explosive plays with on this offense. And like Joel mentioned, this isn't a team that you can run man coverage against. And that's a huge idea where with Jaden Daniels running outside of the pocket, extending plays, you have him with his legs, but now you have to worry about Deebo Samuel. Now, of course, understanding that if you're going to keep Terry McLaurin at that X spot, you have another wide receiver that you can go out there and draw up so many different types of interesting, just gimmicky concepts that you can go out there and have positive plays with. For San Francisco, it's interesting because, man, are we just going all in on a rebuild? Understanding that your offense is kind of aging to a certain degree. Deebo is getting up there. Of course, George Kittle is over 30 years old. Brandon Ayuk is just entering his prime, if you want to say. I understand he did just tear his ACL, but you just paid him an insane contract. We're moving off for him after 1 season. CMC obviously just did miss a majority of last season. This offense, you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy a good contract if you want to keep him as your franchise quarterback. It's just I'm unsure with the direction of the San Francisco 49ers. I love this for the Commanders for obvious reason. Like you mentioned, Joel, it's perfectly said. Low risk, high reward. Deebo Samuel, if he's not great, all right, so be it. We still have our quarterback on a rookie contract. This is 1 year remaining. We can go out there and pivot really quick. But at the same time, you know what Deebo can be if he is healthy on the football field. And that's an explosive player now added to an already explosive offense. So it's going to be fun for the Commanders, but for the Niners, I really don't know what we're doing.
Washington is kickstarting what I think is going to be a tremendous offseason. This is the first real domino that has fallen this offseason when it comes to a trade. And I think Adam Peters is going to be even more aggressive. The 49ers plan of action might just be to go cheap at receiver because they paid Deebo. I think they regret it. They paid Ayuk. I think before he got hurt, they were starting to regret it just because he wasn't playing to that level, even though it was going to take him some time to get acquainted. They have Jawan Jennings, who played really well last year, Ricky Pearsall, who was a first-round pick. I think they're probably telling themselves, okay, we could trade these receivers, and we can just build through the draft with this position, and we don't have to pay them top market value, which is always difficult because now you are rotating receivers, and that chemistry is going to be all over the place. But with the amount of receiving talent you can see maybe the way that they're pivoting, but this is an older offense. I wanted to go through the history of the 5th-round picks they've had. So since 2015, which is when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took over pretty much, George Kittle, Trent Taylor, DJ Reed, Dre Greenlaw, Colton McKivitz, Lenore, Jalen Moore, Talanoa Hufanga, Samuel Womack, Robert Beal, Darrell Luter, Jacob Cowing. As of recently, the 5th-round picks haven't been that good, but historically they have pretty much hit on these picks.
They have some all pros in early years. Yeah, I mean, I think the Niners, it's an interesting move. The Ayuk news is a little shocking because, first of all, we'll see if he gets moved. But if he does get moved, I just don't know why you'd move Ayuk off of Ayuk now after you've paid him and he's coming off a torn ACL. This feels like the lowest value Ayuk is going to have, right? You let him rehab from this injury, come back next season. Maybe he's not 100%, but you hope towards the second half of the year he can show you some sort of level that he used to be, right? A couple of seasons ago where he was playing at all-pro level. But I personally wouldn't be making the move of let's trade all of the weapons, trot out Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings is my wide receiver 1 and 2. CMC is coming off a lost year. Who knows what he looks like? George Kittle is really the only reliable option we have on offense. But that's also why you have Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator. So you can make these changes on offense. You can cut spending in some places and know that if people are healthy, especially at quarterback, you can still probably trot out a borderline top 10 offense, even with weapons that are underwhelming. But I don't understand moving off Ayuk. Deebo, I get just because of the contract, especially the comments he had during the season too, right? Where he's like, oh, I'm just not getting the ball. And then I would just think back to the game. Was it against the Rams?
He dropped it.
On 3rd down, he dropped a wide open slant pass. And I feel like there was just a lot of nonsense going on last year. That wasn't football. So that probably had something to play in it too.
We have a super chat from FS. Goes John Cena with a sad face.
Nothing to be sad about. This is amazing times. As a huge, gigantic John Cena fan, this is amazing. We won.
TQX goes, Giants will surprise everyone if they get Shador.
I'll tell you what, Charles does not want Shador, and I keep telling him, lock in.
Who does he want?
He
Jackson
said that
Dart.
He really wants Travis Hunter. If the Giants pass on Travis Hunter, he's going to be so upset. That being said, he was heartbroken the Giants didn't get Matthew Stafford.
Does he want Aaron Rodgers?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Breezy goes, Tatum will never be in the best in the world convos. He's a 7th, 8th player, best player in the world. Drafted to the ECF #1 seed super team merchant. OKC in 6. W show Big Bros from the UK.
Appreciate you.
You're muted again, Dels.
Your mic is
Why
muted.
the hate?
You get handsy with that mic.
Why the hate? I don't get it.
Dude, there's nothing wrong with being the 7th or 8th best player in the world, though. Like, that's a knock.
He's pretty comfortably 4th.
4th?
4th.
Brother. LeBron or Tatum, straight up?
Tatum.
LeBron's better.
Okay, so then LeBron's better than Luka, too?
Yes.
He's playing better than him for sure.
All right, Tatum's 5th then. Cool.
But LeBron on any given night could be the very best player in the world.
He can be.
Yeah, Tatum can't.
He can be.
I don't know.
Maybe
Maybe every other
15
night.
game 7. He's just coming off of 46,
When was the last
19.
time we saw Tatum look like he did against the Cavaliers? Be honest. When was the last time?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Was it 2023?
I can't remember. I really can't.
He looked best in the world on Friday. That was just 2 days ago, brother.
That's what I said. When was the last time he looked like that? 2023?
Imagine LeBron on the Celtics team replacing Tatum. I mean, come on.
You're coming off a chip, so I don't know what else.
He would.
I don't know what else he really. Should he won 2 championships last year, Drew? I don't know. What did LeBron?
Hey, you got it. Hey, I'm not gonna say it wrong.
Fucking guy's crazy.
LeBron would have if he was on the Celtics since 2021, he'd have 7 rings.
Remember, Drew. Remember this guy during the playoffs? You could put Jeremy Grant on the Celtics.
That was the nastiest shit of all time.
Like this guy, he's just known for just constant hate. I don't want to hear anything about anything.
You put a healthy Zion on last year's Celtics team, they don't win?
No, because healthy Zion, I don't know if it exists.
You're watching him this year.
Yeah.
Drew, you put this version of Zion on the Celtics last year, they don't win the championship?
Of course they're hoisting the Larry.
I don't know, man.
Absolutely they are.
because the defense changes. You can't, you have Tatum on a center because he can guard
That's
the big
fair.
on the perimeter. It changes some things. Now, it's a bigger load on Jaylen Brown offensively. It's a bigger load on everybody offensively. You lose
That's
your
not
best
necessarily
playmaker
true.
in Jason Tatum.
Here's the thing, actually. Now you say that bigger offensive load on Jim, but that's not true. Point Zion exists, and Zion's not going to go out there and defer to Jaylen Brown in the fourth.
Imagine Zion with that spacing. He would have won Finals MVP and Eastern Conference Finals MVP pretty easily.
Okay.
I feel comfortable that he would dominate.
I haven't
he would have
heard
dominated.
I haven't heard if you put Zion on last year's team, he wins Finals MVP.
What's funny? There's nothing funny. Stop talking like Zion.
It's been about a year, and I feel like I've heard every what if from last year's team when it comes to Jason Tatum. Zion Finals MVP. It's a new one. I just didn't know. It was just a new one. That's
you put Pascal Siakam on last year's team, they don't win?
You tell me.
I think they do.
Guess we'll never know. Do it in 2K.
It works in 2K. It works. No, but that's gonna do it for us. Weekend recap. We'll talk about more stuff, the combine and all that stuff. Probably on Monday or Tuesday, really depending on what day we record. Tomorrow is Monday Night Raw, so who knows if we're gonna record tomorrow, especially after
Monday Night Raw.
Especially after the John Cena heel turn. I don't know if that's a necessary date to record.
I would be a negative asset on the pod if we recorded on Monday.
Yeah, the heel turn was just too generational, Dells. You got to lock in.
Bro, we record 5:00 Monday.
Raw does start at 8.
If it's possible, I'm in.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. Mr. Dells coming up with the solutions. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.